Alright, let me sit down here. Ah. Hello, everyone. Now, for those of you who are new subscribers, and are old ones, but don't really know about me, I am Steve, also known as Sly Cooper 88. Now, one major thing that most people don't really understand is that I'm autistic. Yes, I am autistic. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at a very early age. So, I tend to be sociably awkward. Now, on one hand, that's a bad thing, but on the other hand, it grants me a great sense of creativity. But what I really don't understand is why people seem to think that's a bad thing. Autism is not really a bad thing. People tend to demonize it, especially in the media, as something that really is bad, and it makes me go, huh? Because really, autism's not a bad thing. I mean, okay, when it comes to women, maybe it's a little awkward. But overall, it's not a bad and crippling thing. It's actually a good thing. And I'll explain kind of why. Because with Asperger's, I am granted high intelligence. I am very adept at many of the things that I do. Yes, it's shocking. But look, me, I've lived with it for 23 years. So it's not really a bad thing. It's not a demonizing thing. I think people just blow it way out of proportion. I think what people don't understand about those of us on the Asperger's spectrum is that we are really quite normal. Now, however, sadly, in this world, there are many people that are belligerent. They don't believe that Aspies can succeed, but there are others that really don't care. They really honestly don't care about our condition, as you want to call it. Some look at it as more of an advantage than a disadvantage. I think what I really want to do, not just in this video, but I think overall, outside of YouTube, and I gave it great thought, was, you know, maybe I should start public speaking and give awareness to those that do not understand Asperger's in general. You know, it's very annoying when people don't want to understand what it's like to have Asperger's. But as much as it irritates me, I'm okay with it. Because trust in the people that know you best and accept you for who you are. But you also have to be reasonable with this. Because not many people are going to understand. Now, as you're watching this video, for example, I, keep in mind, am 23. Wait, do I actually do this right? Yeah, who cares? Anyway, as you can tell, this dialogue is not looped very well. But my main point isn't in looping the dialogue perfectly to pull off a really, really bad ventriloquist act. I'm mimicking this and trying to keep up with the dialogue at the same time to prove the basic point that, without me coming right out and saying it, that having Asperger's is not a demonizing thing. Now, let us explore. Let us explore the definition of what it truly means to have Asperger's and be autistic. Now, autism, to give you the basic short-rounded definition, is basically a neurological disorder, according to a lot of these scientists and researchers, that it is basically a chemical imbalance in the brain, or that the brain does not really form properly during childbirth, or that's just a random genetic deficiency. Either way, more and more each year, Asperger's is diagnosed. But many people, especially in the media, and many parents with autistic children, or even people with autism themselves, some are very open about it, like myself. I'm extremely open about it because it is a part of who I am. But there are many that are very ashamed of being autistic, or don't want to admit that they're autistic. And what I think these people don't understand is that when you are not accepting of who you are as an individual, then that ends up causing more harm than good. When I am very open with people and tell them that I'm autistic and that I have Asperger's, some people are shocked because they can never tell. Other people are not really caring. A good majority of the people that I know, they don't really care. And not in the bad way, in the good way. They see me for who I am, not for what I am. And I think that's one thing that the media tends to get wrong about autism, is that they demonize it and think that it's this epidemic. I'm here to tell you, at 23 years of age, and as someone who has lived as an Aspie for that long a period, I call complete and utter BS on that. Autism is not an epidemic. It's not a crippling disease. It's just, you're quirky. That's basically the only way to put it. You're just sociably quirky. You can't pick up on body language. You can't read body language. You can't tell if somebody's feeling uncomfortable around you. And honestly, I've read because this is going to be posted in the closed group for the adults with Asperger's syndrome. If those of you in the open group want me to share it, I will share this video as well. But I feel I have to post this as like a beacon of hope for those who are not only teenagers, but adults and children that have Asperger's syndrome. Because I feel that it's very unnecessary that adults, children, and what have you want to be ashamed of being who they are. And many people want a cure because they feel that they are just so sociably outcasted and they're a freak. Well, you know, I've stated it more than once, but I'll reiterate it. I felt the exact same way. And yes, coming right out and admitting that you're autistic is very much the same, in my opinion at least, as coming out and admitting that you're homosexual. It's not an easy process, but it's one that when you get it all off your chest, you feel better about yourself. You go on with a much happier perspective of life, I feel. And also, a lot of this stems from the picture coming up here, is that when I was very young, especially at 5 or 6, I always reiterate it, but I'm going to talk about it. I love superheroes. The idea of the superhero intrigues me. People that are different, superpowered beings. People like Spider-Man, the X-Men, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash. Characters that, technically in our society now would be considered deviants. They would be considered so different, so misunderstood, that people would look at them like they were freaks. They wouldn't accept them for who they are. But see, I turn to superheroes as a fine example because look at a guy like Steve Rogers. Let's take the movies, for example. The recent Captain America First Avenger movie. I love the way Joe Johnston and Chris Evans kind of worked in tandem. Joe Johnston directed a perfect adaptation of who Steve Rogers was, and Chris Evans portrayed the role very well, going back and reading and researching who Steve Rogers was as a character. Steve Rogers was just a sickly young man who just wanted to serve his country, but at the same time, he wanted to feel that he had a purpose. He wanted to feel that he could contribute to something. And him becoming Captain America is a great symbology of how we all would feel inside, being, picked on and whatnot. But the X-Men, to me, will always be the greatest example for people that have autism, and even people with disabilities in general, or people that feel that they are freaks in society, because the X-Men, to me, proved the great antithesis that we are all different, but it is our moral compass, it's where we go in life, that truly separates us from all the hate, ignorance, and bigotry that we go through every day. The X-Men, I will always say, will be my absolute favorite characters, and they're characters that I get very emotional about because growing up with Asperger's, I wanted desperately to be normal. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to have a girlfriend. I wanted to have a decent amount of friends. I wanted to feel like one of the guys, but I always was picked on, bullied, and mistreated because I was different. Because I was an outcast. I was a freak. I didn't think like anyone else did. I didn't act the way anyone else did. And I used to cry myself to sleep. And when my mother and my biological father, my real dad, when they gave me the issues of X-Men, and it was Chris Claremont's run, that I felt that I had a kinship. I felt that I had fictional friends that understood me. And still to this day, I use the X-Men as a great example, and I will continue to use it if I get my public speaking stuff off the ground. Because if you look at the X-Men, they have such a great diversity. They have such a great diversity. Even the Justice League in the DC Universe, the Justice League is made up of many different people from many different walks of life, many different powers, many different philosophies, yet they all still work together. And I think people that are handicapped, physically, mentally, emotionally, are no different from these comic book characters, and I'll tell you why. As best I can, at least. And I feel... sorry, getting a little... I'm trying to think of a good way to explain this. I guess the best way to summarize it up is that, look, I've known people that have had severe diabetes. I've known people that are quote-unquote crippled. They're paralyzed from the waist down. I've known one or two people that have had, limbs amputated. I've known people that are autistic, like myself. I've seen people that are severely autistic. They can't function by themselves. They can't form vowels. They're in their own little world, and what have you. And yet society mistreats these people. I've had many discussions with my own mother about this, that there doesn't need to be a cure for autism. And many people, I'm sure those of you on the autism spectrum who want a cure, who need a cure, who feel that you need to fit in and be normal, I don't mean to be rude and I don't mean to be a jerk, but I'm going to be very blunt and say that you people are copping out. It's a cop-out. We all struggle with stuff in our daily lives. Some stuff we don't want to deal with, but we deal with it nevertheless. I've dealt with Asperger's for 23 years. It's not an easy road. And it certainly doesn't get any better every day. But I survive with this in mind. I'm very open and comfortable about who I am. I don't hide behind a veil of insecurity when it comes to my autism. I'm very open about it, and I'll tell you why I'm open about it. Because people may judge you for coming out and admitting something, especially whether you be homosexual, autistic, have a disability, this and that, or if you have like an STD when you go to date someone. My main point here is don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't be ashamed of what defines you as a person, as an individual. If you are so ashamed of being who you are, then, to put it bluntly, why are you here? Why are you on this earth then, if you feel that strongly about yourself? And see, I also got into the argument with my mother about this over the fact that there's no cure, and my mother's like, well, you don't understand what that would be like, raising a child who's autistic. I said, you're right, I don't. Because I'm not sympathetic towards those people. Nor any who are adults that have Asperger's. I'm not that sympathetic. Because, there are a lot of drawbacks to many different disabilities in this world. If you're a paraplegic, if you are crippled from the waist down, you can't feel your legs, you can't walk, you can't do anything, you're basically paralyzed. But you know what? If you let your disability bring you down, if you look at it more as a curse than an opportunity to better yourself as an individual, to be a beacon of hope for other people like yourself, then you're here on this earth for all the wrong reasons. I always talk with my mother in a very religious manner. Why am I here? What is God's purpose for me? And I think I've somewhat now realized that God has put me here on earth as a beacon of hope, as a symbol for other people like myself. To basically be the person that rises up and says no more. Because I look at people with Asperger's and I look at people just in general disabilities being just as equally mistreated, and some people are going to find this controversial, and some people are even going to perhaps maybe want to fillet me alive for saying this, but it's no but autistic people are treated honestly no differently than black people were during the civil rights movement. Yeah, I said it. People with autism, whether you realize it or not, are actually severely mistreated in most cases, especially the ones that are so low functioning that they need aids. It's sad and pathetic that in this world, bigotry and intolerance still exist on a certain level. You won't see it. You won't hear about it very often, but on a subatomic, microscopic level in our society, there are a group of individuals that are so intolerant towards other people's views, their disabilities, their skin color, yet they hide in the shadows like wolves and coyotes stalking in the night. And all of us with disabilities and whatnot, we're the sheep. Now, that may sound like crazy talk, but I ask these couple of questions to you guys. Non-autistic or autistic. and with disabilities and what have you. Number one, do you feel that your disability is so crippling that you can't fit in with society? Number two, do you feel that if you come out that you're going to be so scrutinized that you're going to want to kill yourself? And number three, and the most important one, do you feel that because of your autism, disability, or whatever, that you feel that you have no purpose on this earth, that you just are here, that you think that it's all one big cosmic joke on you? I want you people on YouTube and on Facebook to ponder this message.